Hello folks, here we are again. Last time what we started talking about were bank reconciliations, right? That formal process of reconciling our cash records to the information that the bank gives. And we talked about how important it is to do that in regards to internal control. It can be one of the most important things we do, right? And I'll probably repeat myself a few times today, but if you remember nothing else from this class, I want you to remember, I've said that like 3 or 4 times this semester. So if you remember only 5 or 6 things this semester, I want you to remember that you should be doing your own bank recs, okay? Business owners out there should be doing their own bank recs, okay? Don't let your accountants do them. You should do them yourselves. Or if you really don't want to do it, pay an accounting firm to do them for you. Or divide up the responsibilities somehow if you have enough people so that the people who have custody of the cash and write checks don't also do the bank reconciliations, okay? All right, let's go through the homework I gave you. I think I'm going to do them a little out of order. I think I'm going to do exercise 8-9 and 8-10 first. Okay, I signed those, did I not? Okay, so let's go ahead and do exercise 8-9. And I kind of want to walk through this. I don't want to just put up the answer on the overhead. I want to go ahead and do this on Excel for you all. So you can kind of see the process, how it should look. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let me read that. Frederick Clinic deposits all cash receipts on the day when they are received, and it makes all cash payments by check. At the close of business on June 30, 2011, its cash account shows a $15,141 debit balance. Frederick Clinic's June 30 bank statement, however, shows $14,275 on deposit in the bank. So those are different amounts, right? Prepare a bank reconciliation using the following information. Okay, before we go on, let's go ahead and start building our bank rec. All right. So let's switch over to Excel. Can you see that back there? Okay, first of all, let's title this thing up. Okay? Let's title this up. Because this isn't just something that we calculate or do. This is something that we want to other people be able to see. Okay? So let's go ahead and Frederick Clinic bank rec. Okay, and this is as of June 30, 2011. Whoops. Let's do that again, like this. June 30, 2011. Okay? All right. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to put the balance per bank, and we want to put the balance per the books, right? And they give us those amounts, correct? The balance per the bank is $14,275, and the balance per the books is, what's the balance per books? 15141? Is that correct? Okay. So that is where we start with this whole situation, correct? Now let's go through those reconciling items that they tell us about, and let's put those in the proper spot. If they go on the if they are on the left side, the bank side, or the right side, the book side. And I always ask myself, who knows about these and who just now is finding out about them? Okay? And whoever is just finding out about them, that's the side it needs to go on. For instance, outstanding checks as of June 30 total $2,500. Well, we know about those, right? But the bank doesn't know about those. Okay? So let's say less outstanding checks. Correct? I'm going to put minus $2,500. Okay? Let's go to the next one. The June 30 bank statement included a $125 debit memo for bank services. Okay? Now, when they say there's a debit memo, that means that they're actually decreasing our account. If they give us a credit memo, that would mean they're increasing our amount. It's kind of weird, but you got to get away from the debit credit that we used when you think of banks, right? As a matter of fact, there's times when I talk to the bank teller and she goes, well, "We're going to debit your account," and I'll want to tell her, "Okay, are you going to increase my account or decrease my account?" Don't use that term because I use it differently. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but obviously, if it's bank services, there's a bank service charge, and so that they're going to decrease our account for, how much was it, $125? So going back to Excel, let's say let's just say bank service charge. And that was how much? $125. Okay? Okay, the next item. Check number 919, listed with the canceled checks, was correctly drawn for $645 in payment of a utility bill on June 15th. However, Frederick Clinic mistakenly recorded it with a debit to utilities expense and a credit to cash in the amount of $654. Okay? So, coming off the Excel for a second, I always got to do the thing with my hands. Okay? We should have decreased the books by $645, right? We decreased the books by $654, mistakenly, right? So we have to add the $9 back. You understand that? Sometimes students have trouble thinking, I don't know if are we supposed to add or subtract. And I always just think, okay, we should have decreased it by this much. We decreased it by this much. We got to add 9 back. Okay? So let's go ahead back to Excel and say add book error. And I might even say check 919. Okay? I might even say check 919. So that if somebody is following my work, they're not just going to see book error, they're going to see exactly what the error was from. Okay? We're leaving a trail for ourselves or for somebody else who might follow us. Okay, so how much do we need to add back? 9? Is that correct? Okay. All right, next item. The June 30 cash receipt of $32.50 were placed in the bank's night depository after banking hours and were not recorded on the June 30 bank statement. Okay, who knows about those? We do, but the bank doesn't yet, right? Okay, so we need to add that to the bank side. Is that correct? Deposit in transit is what we call that. And that was how much? $32.50? All right, does that look good? Okay, now let's see. I think this is going to reconcile. But let's add those up. And they come to the same number, don't they? Now, what are we going to call that? Let's call that the adjusted bank balance and the adjusted book balance. And those amounts in yellow are equal, are they not? Okay? So they equal to the penny. We have successfully performed a bank reconciliation, right? Are you with me? Is that what y'all got? Might have taken longer to go through that than I needed to, but I at least wanted to have you kind of see the process of how this works. You start with the balance per bank, the balance per books. You go through the reconciling items, okay? And again, you should head this up, okay? So that if an accountant comes in and says, can I see your bank reconciliation? You just print them off this sheet right here, okay? Or better yet, you already have it printed off, okay? Questions on that? Okay, now the only thing we have to do now, though, is we do have to make some journal entries, don't we? Now, do we make journal entries for the left side or the right side? We make journal entries for this side. Right now, our books say we have 15,141. After we're done, we want to have our books say at June 30th that we have 15,025. Correct? All right. so what are we going to do this? Well, these journal entries, in a way, kind of write themselves, okay? Because here we are adding to the balance per book, right? So how do we add to cash? What do we do to it? We debit it, okay? So that entry, we know we're going to debit cash for 9, and we will credit something else, okay? Let me adjust these a little bit so you can see everything, okay? Now we also know that here we have to subtract from cash. Well, how do we subtract from cash? We credit it, right? So we're going to be debiting something. So looking at these, what would it make sense for the book error that we credit? What do you think? Not AP. Let's go back to my mime hands, okay? We originally debited utilities expense for, how much was it? Let me look back at it. Okay, let me say this a little different way. We should have debited utilities expense for $6.45, right? So let's go this way. We should have debited it for $6.45. We incorrectly debited it for $6.54, right? Correct? So we have to reduce utilities expense by 9. Does that make sense? So you want to think back to your original entry. If you want, make that original entry and think, well, what should it have been? So what we actually credit here, going back to the Excel, is utility expense. Does that make sense? Because we don't owe anybody anything. We paid the correct amount. We just recorded it wrong in our books. Okay, for the 125, the bank service charge, what would it make sense that we debit?
Be interest?
No, it's not interest because we're not earning interest. This is the bank service charge that they charge us.
Miscellaneous expense?
You could do miscellaneous expense or, bank fee expense. Just make it, whatever expense the company uses to record that. Okay? But this information right here, these two journal entries, are what we have to make. We only make them for the right side. We do not do any journal entries for the stuff on the left side of the bank rec, just for the stuff that was adjustment to books. Okay? But that debit could be to miscellaneous expense or bank fee expense or whatever. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? Any questions on that? Did you get that pretty much? Okay, I think I assigned you one other one. Was it a quick study? Let's take a look at that. I'm not going to walk through that one as slowly. But I think that was another bank rec you had to do. Correct? I don't think they asked us the journal entries on that one, though. Okay, we're going to do quick study 8.6. Cruise company deposits all cash receipts on the day when they are received, and it makes all cash payments by check. At the close of business on June 30, its cash account shows 11,352 debit balance. Cruise's bank statement shows 10,332 on deposit at the bank. They want us to do a bank rec for it. Correct? So, how do we start out? Let me get a blank piece of paper here. Okay. Well, the first thing we start out with is our balance per bank and our balance per book. Correct? Now, I won't walk through each one of those items, but that is what the bank rec looks like. We come down to an adjusted balance of 11,343 on each side. Is that what you guys got? Yeah? Is it important to know how to do a bank rec? Yes. Okay. Do you guys actually physically get those of you who have checking accounts, do you get a bank statement in the mail? Do you? Now, banks do it differently. They used to, when they sent you your bank statement, they used to actually send you the actual checks. You guys are probably too young to remember that. I'm going to tell you about the old days, okay? They used to actually send you the canceled checks. So you would thumb through those, you know. But then they switched to, what do you get, Sarah?
It's just kind of like a list of...
It's just a list?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of my transactions.
Is it a little picture of them?
No. Like, you mean like copies of my checks?
Yeah. What they used to do, what they then switched to doing for a while was they would not send you the actual physical check. What they would send you, is that somebody's phone going off? That means you got to bring cookies for everyone, doesn't it? Isn't that the rule? Isn't that what we agreed on? Okay. What they used to send you, they wouldn't send you the actual physical check, but they would send you a piece of paper, okay? And they would have a photocopy of each check. You see? Have you ever seen that? Okay. Now let me tell you how one company that I found, how she was stealing from the company. She did the bank rec, and as in most fraud situations, she was writing herself a check. Okay? She was writing herself a check illegally, taking the money, and then when she got the bank rec in and all the detail, she would go to this information and she would find which one of these was the little check that had her name on it. Then what she would do is she would cut that out, and she would take, she would go to an old bank rec or something and take some scissors and cut the little check that was there, and she would take it down here, and she would paste it over there, and then she would photocopy it. Do you see what I'm saying? And if she was smart, what she did was, before she stole, she would even look to see what check she was going to cover it up with. So like if she was going to take a legitimate check from a past bank rec for $3,250, that'd be how much she wrote it for. Herself a check. And then she'd take that $3,250. So then she could perform a bank rec. It would reconcile, and if somebody found it, they would have to be pretty astute to recognize, right? Or if somebody asked to see that check, she could just say, I cannot find that check, or whatever. Now, what I'm saying is most people are just going to go, oh, I'm sure it's okay, I'm sure she's fine. Well, she stole a lot of money from this company. She stole a lot of money from this company, okay? Now, what should have happened there? What should have happened is not only should somebody else who didn't have check writing capabilities been doing the bank rec, but they should receive that bank information unopened, or better yet, sent to their house so that nobody can alter it. Because this lady could have done the bank rec and even shown somebody the bank rec and probably been pretty rest assured that they weren't going to be detailed enough to know what she did. Does that make sense?
So how did they catch her?
I'm not sure how they caught her, but they did catch her. She stole $85,000. This is the one that was at my relative's business. But they spent a lot of money prosecuting her. They had to let several people go. It was a big mess. Okay? Big mess. And the reason they let her do it is why? They trusted her. She was a really nice lady. It was a lady again.
Did her bank think it was odd that she was getting all these checks?
That's a great question. And I would probably say no. Because for all the, I mean, how many checks go through a bank? Yeah. But I mean, if she was stealing from a company, for all they know that she's doing consulting work for them. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I get checks from companies when I do consulting work, and so it's not really that bank's fault, but that's how she was doing it. I'm always afraid I'm giving you all ideas. So I will say this. It is amazing that when these people do get caught, a lot of times they just got too greedy. You know, if somebody would do this once, but they just get greedy, don't they? You know, and I don't know. You start living a life where you're just nervous all the time, right? And this lady was just stressed out in a major way because, like most people, she had no criminal record until this, and but they have to pay. They had to pay back the money to. You know, she went to jail for a little while, but they plea bargained down to her spending less time in jail if they paid the money back over time. So it's in the end, it's a big mess. It's a big mess.
Can't get a job.
Yeah, it's really hard to get a job as an accountant. Why'd you leave your last place? There was a 2-year break in your resume. Well, I stole from the company. I had to go to jail for a while. Okay. Well, we'll give you a call if we're interested, right? So usually what happens is they have to cash out 401ks or whatever, but it's not a pleasant experience, as I'm sure it wasn't for your neighbor, Anna. Okay. You know, I've always wanted to find somebody who is in jail like this, and I've wanted to ask if I could interview them for this class. Wouldn't that be interesting? I would love to do that. So call your neighbor and ask her if I can come in and talk to her. Get right on that. Okay, we're done with the homework, right? What I would like to do now in class is I want to work on one. You folks at home, I want you to work on one as well. Let's work on exercise 8.11. Okay? Let's work on exercise 8.11 on page 348 in your books. Okay? That's another bank rec. I don't believe they have you do the journal entries on that. That's fine. We'll just do the bank rec. Okay? But let's go ahead and work on exercise 8.11. We'll roll that music. You folks at home work on it as well. And here in a while, we'll go over the answer. Okay? All right, exercise 8:11 is what we just did. I'm not going to read through that since you just read it, but let me go ahead and, what'd you get as your adjusted balances? How much?
14,800.
14,800? That is the correct answer. So take a look at that on the screen. The process is the same. You start with your bank statement balance, and you start with your book balance, and then you simply go through those reconciling items and put those where they belong, as far as on the book side or the bank side, and if they're added or they're subtracted. Correct? All right. So, and then of course they titled it up and they dated it. They'll file it away so that this is evidence that a bank reconciliation was performed. Right? Okay. So pretty self-explanatory, I think, if you understand this, but I want you to understand it. Matter of fact, I'll assign one more bank rec for you to do for homework tonight. But is there any questions on exercise 8:11? Is that pretty much what you guys got? Okay. All right. Good. Well, we only have one more thing to talk about in chapter 8, so let's do that real quick. Going to the PowerPoint, very last slide. This is the ratio that they cover in chapter 8, and what it is it's called days sales collected. And this is how much time is likely to pass before we receive the cash from our accounts receivable or from our credit sales. Okay? So we calculate it by taking accounts receivable divided by net sales times 365. And that will give us something like, let's say, 82.5 days. That means it would take us 82.5 days to receive the cash from our receivables. Does that make sense? Now, do you want days, and you can read about this in your textbook at the end of the chapter as well, but do you want this number to be, all things being equal, do you want this to be high or low? You want it to be low, okay? You want it to be low. You want, a lot of times we can't pay our bills until and unless our customers pay us, right? I've had a business of my own, and I can tell you there were many times that I owed money to one of our vendors, and I had all these receivables, and nobody was paying me, so I was stuck, right? Okay? Now, when you figure out this days sales uncollected, the one thing that you might do is compare it to competitors' amounts, or maybe not to competitors' amounts, but how else would you utilize this ratio? It's one of the most important things I do when I go into a client. I calculate this ratio over time for the same company, and I see if their receivables are slowing down. If their receivables are slowing down. If I see a company who 3 years ago their day sales uncollected was 61 days, and 2 years ago it was 69 days, and 1 year ago it was 75 days, and now it's 85 days. Over time, their receivables are slowing down. That can be a big, big problem, can't it? Okay? You guys ever been in a situation where you cannot wait till payday comes? Your paycheck, I need my paycheck. Well, think about if all of a sudden they said, well, your paycheck's going to be 3 days later than what we thought. Is that going to affect your life? Yeah, well, it affects businesses as well. If the cash they're expecting to come in is all of a sudden slowed down. Okay? So it's a very important ratio. We could talk a lot about these ratios, but there's not a whole lot of time in this class. But if you get an accounting degree, financial statement analysis is something that you'll spend a lot of time on, and this is one of the most important ratios, is how quick are receivables coming in. It's one of the ratios I always utilize when I go into clients. Okay? Cool? So read about that. I'll assign one of those for you for homework. Okay? All right, any questions? We're kind of done with chapter 8, although I'm going to assign some more homework for chapter 8. We're just going to briefly talk about one little thing that's going to be in chapter 9. Okay? We're going to talk about one thing in chapter 9. I think maybe we'll just even use one slide from Chapter 9 today. But Chapter 9 is in regards to accounting for receivables. Accounting for accounts receivable, okay? Now, we've been using accounts receivable in our journal entries throughout this semester, so we know what an accounts receivable is, right? An accounts receivable is when we sell on credit and they're going to pay us later, okay? We have an account receivable from that company, right? We were just talking about day sales and receivables, so we understand what that is, right? Well, the only thing I really want to focus on today in regards to receivables is this aspect of control receivables versus the subsidiary detail, okay? Let's take a look at the Elmo, okay? Let's take a look at the Elmo. I don't think this will be too hard of a concept. But if you look at a balance sheet, you know, as of 12/31/11, you know, you're going to have your different items, but somewhere in there it's going to say your accounts receivable. And let's go ahead and do a simplified example. Let's say our accounts receivable for this company is $10,000 at 12/31/11. Okay? You with me? Well, what that means is we have a T account, accounts receivable, and the balance as of 12/31 is $10,000, right? Now, what we call this, though, we call this the control account. That's the total of all accounts receivables, the control account, okay? However, we know that somewhere there is detail on exactly who owes us what, right? Because there's not just one company that owes us $10,000. There's probably a number of companies, right? So let's say in this situation, and we'll keep it simple, let's say that XYZ company accounts receivable, let's say they owe us $5,000. Let's say that Sprint accounts receivable, let's say they owe us $3,000. And let's say that Hallmark company owes us $2,000. Okay, can you see that? Well, what we call this detail right here, what we call this detail is our subsidiary, or sometimes we call it our detail accounts receivable. Does that make sense? Now, the total of your detail, 5 plus 3 plus 2, always has to equal what's in your control account. Correct? Always, always, always. And when a client would tell me, well, my accounts receivable is $10,000, what I would say is, can you provide me the detail of who owes you what? Right? Not too hard of a concept, isn't it? And it's one that, even though we maybe haven't discussed before, I think it's kind of intuitive. We kind of know this already, don't we? Now, we don't have, looking back at this, we do not have a line on our balance sheet for each company that owes us, do we? Because think about it, this is a long list for most companies. This could be hundreds of pages long, can't it? We only report the control account. Okay? We only report the total. But this is called, sometimes we call that, I think your book refers to it as a schedule of accounts receivable. And you can show a schedule of accounts receivable, which would look a little bit like, we've got plenty of time here. For the example we just did, if I asked you to do a schedule of accounts receivable at 12/31/11, I would have XYZ Company, I would have Sprint, I would have Hallmark. Sprint owes me $5,000. I'm sorry, XYZ owes me $5,000. Sprint owes me $3,000. And Hallmark owes me $2,000. The total of that is $10,000. That would be called a schedule of AR, and that was actually what I would ask the client for. Does that make sense? Now, if let's move on, let's say it's into 2012 now, and let's say that XYZ Company paid $1,000 to us. They owe us $5,000, but they pay us $1,000, right? Well, when we do that journal entry, the way we might record that is we might not just say, we might not just do that, but we might just say accounts receivable. Who did I say? XYZ? We might put that in parentheses so we know the detail to go to. Understand? And when we're looking through this, we know which company actually paid us $1,000. Now, the important thing is, whenever you have a debit or a credit to accounts receivable, you have to post that not only in the control account, but also in the subsidiary detail. You have to post that in the accounts receivable for both spots. Do you understand that? Because otherwise, the detail in total won't equal the control, will it? So in that case that I just did, for that journal entry right here, I would have to post that to the control account. So now it is what, 9,000? And I would have to post it to the detail. So that's now 4,000. Does 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9? Yeah, it does. So we're still good. Do you understand what I'm talking about, folks? Any questions on that? Okay. Okay. And that's all we're going to talk about in regards to Chapter 9 today. Okay? So let me go ahead and give you your homework. Maybe a tad bit more homework than what I usually assign. So you might allow just a little bit more time than normal. Okay? But I want you to do quick study 8.7 and 8.11. And I want you to do not exercise, folks, but problem. Have we done problems before in this class? They're right after the exercises. And make sure you do the right one. Okay? I want you to do problem 8.1a and 8.4a. Not B, but A. Okay? 8.1a and 8.4a. And then one last thing I would like you to do from Chapter 9 is exercise 9.2. Okay? So that is what I'd like you to do for homework. Those quick studies, those problems, and that exercise. It shouldn't take you too long, but it'll probably take you a little longer than today's homework. So allow yourself enough time. You don't learn this stuff if you don't do it at home, okay? All right, I'm letting you out a little early today. Quick one, right? So do your homework. We'll see you next time.